everybody. Welcome to another video from the Greater Love Declaration. The Greater Love Declaration is a document that we've written which speaks all about the goodness of marriage, the goodness of God's gift of human sexuality, and what it means to be humans made in God's image. We're going to be speaking a bit today, me and Matthew and Tim, about the criminal justice bill that's coming forward. So we're going to be talking a bit about conversion therapy practices and a bit about the abortion amendments. So just to introduce ourselves, first of all, my name's Tom Brand. I'm the Ministry Director for the Evangelical Fellowship of Congregational Churches, and I also serve at the moment as the Chairman of the Affinity Council. Matthew, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Matthew Roberts. I'm Minister of Trinity Church York, part of the International Presbyterian Church.
And Tim.
I'm Tim Vasby-Burnie and Vicar of St George's Church in Shrewsbury in Shropshire, part of the Church of England.
Brilliant. So it's great to have three brothers from different groupings of churches, but all working together to really highlight the goodness of God's gift of marriage and everything that means for us as individuals and as society. Matthew, tell us a little bit about this criminal justice bill that's coming out, and can you pick out particularly the issues about conversion practices that are coming through in these various bills?
So the criminal justice bill, it's sort of a flatbed truck of legislation in that it's not a bill with one big headline the government's trying to achieve. They're trying to tidy up lots of different bits of law to do with it, the criminal justice law, and some of it is perfectly innocuous and sensible, and there's lots of things in there that are interesting but not that important. But because it is a kind of flatbed truck, what it means is that lots of other MPs have been trying to throw their own bags onto the back of it in the form of amendments on various things. And so a number of those are to do with abortion, which Tim will talk about in a minute, and a number of those are to do with what are being called conversion practices.
Great. Thank you. Can you tell us specifically then a bit about the conversion practices? How are these different amendments changing conversion practices, and what can we do about it?
Yes, so this is actually not to do with conversion practices that's the issue. But this is what was being called a year and a half ago conversion therapy, and the idea of this was to pass a law which would make it illegal to ever seek to dissuade someone from engaging in either a gay or transgender lifestyle or practices. The reason that the word therapy has been dropped is pretty straightforward. Is because the campaigners who wanted this were concerned that it wouldn't catch who they really want to catch, and who they really want to catch is churches. That is the main target of this, and so one of the reasons why we as a group that represents those in Christian ministry are very concerned about it, because really the aim of this is to make it illegal to teach a Christian doctrine of marriage on a very straightforward front. So that's why it's important, Tom.
Great, thank you.
Matthew, tell us a bit about how the Cass review might have changed things.
Yes, well, so some of you will have heard of the Cass review. So Hilary Cass, paediatrician, has been asked by the NHS to do a review of treatment of children to do with gender dysphoria and all of the horrendous things that are done in the name of supporting, in quotes, transgender children. This review, I'm sure many of our watchers will have seen. They've seen publicity about this in the news. Basically, she's been highly critical of the way that the way that ideology has driven treatment of children far more than evidence, and has said that there is really no strong evidence for giving children puberty blockers and hormones. That's very, very good news, and in many ways we want to support it. Now, this I think changes somewhat. Probably kind of the prognosis of what might happen. Basically, there's an amendment being placed to the criminal justice bill, which would straightforwardly make it a criminal offence to, and the phrase is, change or negate or replace, I think, someone's sexual orientation or transgender identity. And that's a strange bit of language. There's never been language of negating used in this context before in law. Legal opinion obtained by the Christian Institute has said that can only mean advising someone or encouraging someone not to act on homosexual inclinations or not to seek to present yourself as belonging to the opposite sex. seeing as those are things that Christian ministers would always do if we're being faithful to God's word and if we really love people, then it would directly affect us. Now, the Cass review, I think, will affect it because it's sort of changed the temperature of the debate a little bit, in that it's made people realise that actually the sort of LGBT juggernaut is no longer something that we can just assume is always right, which has been the kind of approach for the last 20, 25, 30 years, really, in the UK government. So, and the big thing is that this conversion practices legislation, this big push that's been happening in lots of countries to get this in, is really kind of part of the package of normalising transgenderism, as well as, of course, accepting the normalisation of homosexual relationships. And so really what the Cass review has done is basically said we can't do that anymore. And particularly Hilary Cass was asked in a Guardian interview about this idea of a new law. She said it would cause problems, significant problems, because she's thinking of medics, particularly. She was working for the NHS, her report, but it would cause big problems because unless it's really carefully framed, how does that not force any doctor who is trying to help a child with gender dysphoria to always say you must go in the direction of the opposite sex to your actual natural biological sex? Because if you push them the other way, then now that's conversion practice, conversion therapy, and so it acts as a kind of ratchet. That's the idea. You could only ever go this way. You can never push someone that way. And of course, now that it's become official NHS policy, that actually it shouldn't be the norm to push people that way, and rather, particularly for young people, for children, actually the norm should be to allow their bodies to develop naturally and in a healthy way. It's very hard to see how these things will fit together. And we as Christians should capitalise this on all very much by saying. Making the point that the impetus for conversion practice legislation was always to seek to kind of shift the whole of society only in the direction of affirming transgender identities. Well, we can't do that. So I think it will help, but the thing is definitely not off the table. So we need to be writing to our MPs. And the thing to do is to quote the Cass review, or at least refer to it and say, there's no way legislation that bans, quotes, conversion practices could ever be compliant with what Hilary Cass says.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much, Matthew, for summarising that for us. Tim, I want to ask you a bit about the amendments to this criminal justice bill in relation to abortion. So for the Great Love Declaration, it's all about focusing on the goodness of marriage. And one of the primary functions of marriage is procreation and then raising children. It's just such a glorious aspect of what we can do as human beings made in God's image. Tim, tell us a little bit about these amendments and how they will affect abortion practices in the UK.
Well, there's a few different amendments, and it'd be best for people watching this to follow some of the links in the show notes and read a bit more detail about what the amendments are, because some are positive. Some would be problematic and things we want to oppose, and so it's crucial that we do write to our MPs and we do look into. It won't take much reading. They're helpful summaries of what's out there. There is move to decriminalise it, abortion for women. So if an abortion is illegal, so it's not a criminal offence. And of course, that's the sort of amendment that changes a culture. Law doesn't just come into effect when you've crossed a line. It changes the conversation, it changes an understanding of the value of life and so on. So we want to oppose amendments that seek to make abortion a kind of normal part of functioning society. But there are some helpful amendments there. There's one that would reduce the upper limit from 24 to 22 weeks, because we so often have children who are premature, and in part of a hospital they're fighting to save a premature child. Another part of hospital, they are putting to death unborn children. So it's a step towards making abortion something that we just never think about. If we can reduce the upper limit.
You've just told us that there are some amendments going one way and some going the other way.
Yes.
Can you just kind of explain how does that happen?
I guess there are different views, aren't there? There are different opinions. Society is divided, and the Houses of Parliament are divided, and so different MPs have added different amendments. They've thrown their ideas onto the flatbed truck that you mentioned, Matthew. So, so do follow the links, find out what the amendments are, and do write to your MP. It's important that we just make MPs aware that we are concerned about these issues, and we want to support unborn children. We want to protect the vulnerable. We want to make sure women are protected from being forced into abortions, and we want to see marriage and children upheld for the good they are as they're created by God.
Thank you so much, Tim. You used that phrase about killing children at one point in what you were saying about the death of children. I think it's just so important for us in the Great Love Declaration, for us as Christians, that life begins at the moment of conception. That's a human being.
Yeah.
And the only difference is that it's in the womb. It grows, it's made in God's image, and it's worthy of respect, and has this right to life, this God-given right. So any kind of abortion after conception, it is murder. And it's so important that we can uphold it. Tim, thank you so much for explaining that to us. Matthew, thank you so much for what you've said. Again, just to emphasize, please do look in the notes below and look for more details, if you like, on Christian Institute and CARE and Christian Concern. They've had loads of really helpful write-ups of these important issues. Thank you so much for watching.
It's worth, before I know you're about to sign off, but I wonder it's worth just saying one more thing, which is that each of these amendments, they get thrown onto the truck, but then MPs will vote on each one independently. Of course, they won't even all get selected by the Speaker. So it's quite possible for some to go through and not others. So the fact that these amendments have been laid doesn't mean it's a dead cert, but there's lots of ways they might get added, they might get taken out. So we need to be praying for our MPs and writing to them as much as we can.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, please do write to your MPs, friends, if you're watching this. It's a really important way for us to get our opinions known. God bless you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.